start working on the focal point of the painting, the eyes. So right now we have very open area of the eyes, and then now I'm gonna create a little bit more anatomy and start with darkening the tear duct, and then creating shadow shape under the eyelashes, bringing a very narrow piece of light on the top plane of her eyelid, and then bringing a slightly warmer piece of light on the top here, connecting this. So as you see, you really don't need a line there. And then bringing a little bit more violet and red and darkening, clear the white part, and then bringing highlight on the top of the eyelid, bringing a warmer plane here, and then you can bring warmer yellow light all the way, oh, too yellow. Yeah, it falls out of the skin coloration. That's okay. Take a little bit of the background into it and a tiny bit of red. It needs to look lit up, but it doesn't need that much color. And then change the coloration to more pink and come to the corner of the eye a little more. And create that little eye bag. Take a little bit more violet to that, and then just create a small highlight on the corner. And that highlight will move down towards the nostril, and maybe it can be just a slightly stronger highlight, and then also allow just more light on the top, connecting the cheek highlight, and then picking a little bit more warmer red orange and bring it to the corner of that and hold that highlight with just a little bit more color. We had all these big planes, and now we're refining their relationship and also complicating, but still you don't need to paint everything you see. You can take a few shortcuts, but I suggest that when you decide what you're gonna paint and what you're gonna leave out, that your consideration will be based on painting flow of light. So for example, if I put a highlight top curvature of the eyelid here, then I also want to connect with a little bit of light, the shape next to it here. So that highlight has an action to adjacent area, and that adjacent area has a influence and brought a change to the area on top of it, so it's a little cooler here, and that brought a change through the eyebrow, and that connected to the highlight sitting on top of that corner. So now what I've painted is a movement of light going backwards, but basically the biggest shape of the forehead got the largest highlight, moving down the eyebrow, breaking it through, coming around, around, around. And the next thing it will get, top of this plane, the next thing it will get the little highlight on the corner, and it will enter and break the edge of the lip here into the highlight and spill, and the next thing it's gonna hit is the top plane of her chin. Again, is a little too much, but nothing that can be cut into the right place and the right size. That's what I'm just describing by a flow of highlights. Just before we did the flow of light, and now we're doing the flow of highlights. Now we can paint the second eye. Let's come up with a shadow. There is a little bit more of this sharper edge here because this is a cast shadow, but even that should not be as sharp as a razor blade. Nothing in the portrait should be that sharp because face is not made from metal. Here I will put a little bit more going back. I'm gonna take a little violet and bring that corner and then match that value of pink, open that gate, not have an edge here, and just slightly come around the low eyelid and sharpen a little bit of this edge. The next edge here will be the softer edge right here. I'm gonna make it more closer to the color of the shadow, and then the next edge to that will be a little bit of a sharper edge, because here on the top of that curve we're gonna have more light, and then with a little more color and a little less pressure on the brush, I'm gonna reduce the amount of light, while on the eyelid right here I'm gonna increase that piece of light, and as I go around eyeball I'm gonna decrease that by just slightly patting this color in, and if it's not enough I'll come back from the other side and just soften and darken that we see by contrast. The closer we make the values, the more vague it becomes, the harder it is to see. So if you want to create mystery or transition to less, you bring values, colors, paint application, brushstroke closer together. If you want things to read different, separate, then you increase the contrast. Sometimes it's value contrast, sometimes you'll solve that problem by color contrast, or even texture contrast, or the sharpness of the edge. You decide. There is more than one way to paint. We didn't even need to paint the tear duct. It just was something that was already there. But if you want to add a little more color, you can add a little more color. But we carved it out by painting around it. And I find that carving out is such a beautiful painting solutions. rather than always put things in. You make something out of something else. And I'll show you another example where we can carve out. So you'll start looking out for those opportunities of using carving. You can reduce the value by connecting with little scratches. That's a wonderful little technique. Just a little eyelash. She has a very strong eyelashes. It's up to you how strong to make them. But I would, whatever you decide, I would paint through them a little bit so they not feel like a solid shape. Maybe a highlight, that's too big. And then I'll put a little more green to the bottom. I hope that this lesson was useful. Thank you so much for joining this class. I hope you enjoyed it.